So what is a stronghold in your life that needs to fall? Can you identify it? I was at a men's conference, speaking at a men's conference a few years ago, and I sat down at a table with a group of men, and we were focusing on this idea of strongholds and trying to identify them, specifically looking at these strongholds that we'd had since we were perhaps boys that were affecting our lives now as men. And we just went around the table to share the strongholds. And so Joe went first, and Joe said, I didn't think it was okay to be sad. And he grew up in a home where the expectation was to be happy no matter what, all the time. Real men aren't sad. Being sad is for weak people. And so when his family dog died and he cried, he remembers his dad teasing him. And now Joe, because of the stronghold of it's okay not to be sad, he deals with lots of loneliness in his life. Why? Because when he's sad, it doesn't feel like it's okay to share that with anybody. So he keeps his sadness to himself. And that's really isolating, and it's really lonely. And Joe deals with anger because of this stronghold. Why? Well, because what he learned as a boy is it's not okay to be sad. Being sad is a masculine, but it's okay to be angry. And so every time he's sad, it shows up as anger. And he's been angry a lot. Around the table we go. Mike identifies his stronghold. I thought of women as objects. Mike's parents divorced when he was 6, and he would stay at his father's house. He had easy access to his dad's collection of porn. He was hooked by the time he was 11. When he got married, he thought marriage would break that stronghold in his life, but it didn't. Instead, what he did was, without meaning to, is he sent his wife down that neural pathway of objectification. And he looked at her as someone who existed to satisfy him. He put pressure on her, was demanding with her. She became bitter and resentful. They divorced after 3 years. Around the table, Scott's stronghold. I thought my worth was determined by how much money I made. He grew up thinking that success in life was determined by the income he made, the car he drove, the house he lived in, the vacations he went on. And look, he was surrounded by kind of real life algorithms, real life examples that reinforce this thinking, that the measure of his worth was determined by how much he was worth. And what he could see now as a man in his mid-50s is that that stronghold has directed every major decision of his life. Like every major decision has been filtered through this lie that my worth is determined by how much money I can make. He wasn't thinking about legacy or eternity or God's will or God's kingdom. And on around the table we went. The next one that got identified, the next stronghold that got identified is, I thought I couldn't ask for help. And that one was mine. And I've shared this with you before, but I don't remember ever intentionally thinking this, but somewhere along the line, I picked up on this idea and thought it and then kept thinking it, that it's okay to help people, but it's not okay to ask for help from people. My thinking, this stronghold convinced me that asking for help was the same as admitting failure. And so if I ask for help, I'm calling myself a failure. I didn't want to do that. This thinking, this stronghold convinced me that it's okay to be someone who rescues. It's okay to be a rescuer, but you don't want to be somebody who needs rescued. And that seemed to work okay. Like that stronghold seemed to work okay until it didn't. And I can tell you, in our early years of marriage, and we're working through some things and trying to figure some things out, my young wife would say, hey, why don't we just ask somebody for help as we navigate this? And in my mind, that wasn't an option. No, we can't. I got this. I can fix this. We'll figure this out. I'm not gonna ask somebody for help. When we're in the thick of parenting and we're trying things that just clearly aren't working. And my wife says, why don't you just ask someone for help? At your job, you're surrounded by people who can help you with this. Why don't you just ask someone for help? I'll figure this out. It's fine. I've got this under control. And here's what I finally had to recognize is that this thought, I can't ask someone for help, it wasn't just holding me captive. It was holding my wife captive. It was holding my children captive. It was holding people I lead captive. Around the table we go. What's yours? What's a stronghold that has had its grip on your life long enough? And how do we fight the strongholds? Go back to 2 Corinthians 10. The weapons we fight against are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, these weapons, divine weapons, have the power, divine power, to demolish strongholds. Okay, what are we talking about, God? You got a nuclear arsenal up there? You've got some weapon that I don't know about where you just push that button and this stronghold just explodes once and for all? What weapons are you talking about? Well, you keep reading. Weapons he gives us, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. This is the Almighty's strategy for breaking some strongholds in your life. Thinking differently. Why? Because he created your brain. He understands concepts of neuroplasticity. He knows that if you can change the way you think, it'll change your brain, it'll position you to experience his transforming power. That when you start to take biblical truth and scriptures and replace the lies with his truth, transformation happens.